I think he died, eh? I
Oh no,
think,
did I lose Pearl now?
yeah, I think, yeah, you did.
Nah, but you're back. You're back.
Yeah, I was saying, I think the guy that was doing the voiceovers died last year,
What?
if I'm not mistaken. I think, yeah, because a lot of people were saying, like, who's going to do that voice now? And some were saying, so this guy died before we could see his face. I remember, yeah, he died last year, if not early this
Oh
year.
my gosh. Yo, that's so
So
sad.
it
I
is,
feel
yeah.
like part of my childhood is like
It's
gone.
gone. Yep.
Are you serious?
Ima- Yeah. I remember it
Yo.
was trending last year and people were just so sad.
Oh
Like,
my
now,
word.
who's going to tell us that WWE SmackDown, we won't hear that voice anymore. Like,
Hi, sweetheart. Ah, y'all are moving mad in the chats today.
who's that? Who's that?
I don't,
Who is that?
Shiv. What's up, Shiv? How you doing? What was his name? I feel like we need to just like pay our respects.
I um his name. I forgot his name. Let me try to check quickly. Yeah, it was quite sad learning about his passing.
Yo, nah, that is very sad.
Uh, yeah, he died at 54. It
That's so
was
young.
Bongani Njoli, best known as the voice behind ETV's Friday action night movie and weekend.
That's
What?
so tragic. Oh my gosh, rest in peace, Bongani.
Yeah, he
Yo,
was
shout
so,
out
yeah,
Ryan.
he was really young. Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan. Ryan's on the live. What's up?
Oh, nice.
You haven't watched Ryan's
Hi,
podcast? Go check
Ryan.
it out.
Yes, um episode I'm losing track. We have done so many episodes so far, but
Yeah, no, there are quite a few
yeah,
now, hey?
we have quite a few. But Ryan's was episode 19. Yeah.
Episode 19. Check it out.
Yep.
I think it's got the I think it's got the no second most listens on Spotify.
On Spotify.
Second
Yeah.
most listened
Second
podcast on
most listens
Spotify.
on
Episode
Spotify
19, fast
for sure.
fashion. Alright, Pearl. Ryan says he's here. He's really stoked to hear our takes on cabinets and the BET Awards. So
Whew.
yeah, tell us, what are we talking about today? Let's get into it.
Let's get into it without an intro. Anyway, so today we're going to be touching on the BET Awards. Obviously, Tyla and Makhadzi took awards home. Shout out for representing. And there's been some mixed reactions to their wins, though. Like some people were,
Uh-oh.
especially with
Here we
Tyla,
go.
especially with
Okay,
Tyla.
this is the number one reason why we need to talk about cabinets because this internet issue that we experience in South Africa. Who's our new Minister of Tech Communication? Minister
Minister
of
of Tech,
Communication.
Minister of
Sorry,
Communication.
Sorry Malatsi.
Sorry.
Yeah, Sorry Malatsi. I think he's a new minister um, from the Democratic Alliance. Sorry,
Okay.
please solve this internet
I'm
issue.
struggling.
Young people that have
I am
so many
struggling.
opinions and thoughts and like things to share, and we want to share that with the world, but we can't because we don't have reliable internet. Please. Anyways, Ryan saying scenes when Gayton McKenzie welcomes Tyla at OR Tambo. He's gonna welcome her with some spinning cars. He's gonna bring the spinning cars.
Oh
They're gonna
my
be there
god.
when you arrive at the airport and there's that big space in the
I,
middle. You must bring a car and spin it there. That would be lit. I won't
yo,
even lie. That would be lit. Probably not legal, but it would be lit.
I was not the one who said that. I didn't say anything. Count me out.
Doesn't matter if it ain't legal as long as it's lit. Lit over legal. No, I'm
Yo,
joking. I take that back, guys. Context. Context matters.
yay, yay. Before we become
Context matters.
controversial, yay, yay.
No, you need a little bit.
You know how
You need a little bit of spice. That's how we do things
a,
here.
a little bit of spice. You know how some people would take that part and be like, "You said this,"
Mm.
And then next thing you see yourself headlines. Josh Dillon said
Let's talk
this.
about this.
Everything is
I know this wasn't the topic, but
yeah,
I personally, my personal opinion, I wouldn't mind being cancelled. I feel like being
really.
cancelled in the greater scheme of things is actually a good thing.
How so?
That's my 2 cents. Why? Because being cancelled means that you're the talk of the town. Have you ever heard the saying that there's no such thing as bad press?
Yeah,
Like, and the thing is, no matter what opinion that you give out on the internet, there's going to be someone that disagrees with it. Like, it's guaranteed someone's
yeah,
going
for
to
sure.
disagree with what you have to say. So, what happens a lot of the time is someone will get cancelled for saying X because the people that are canceling them believe Y. And then what lands up happening is they start, because they canceled him, they start trending him or her, they start trending and they reach more people, and then they just reach more people that agree with X. And then they get all those people follow them, and then they land up being better off than what they were before. So I personally think being cancelled is a good thing.
Wow.
I
Okay.
guess maybe it
Okay.
depends. Okay, asterisks. Maybe it depends on what you're being cancelled for, because there are some things that are just like, you can't come back from that. Hashtag no Diddy.
Mm.
Yeah, no Diddy. No
Yo,
Diddy.
yo.
Optimistic indeed. Yo, what's up, Nakanta? What are you optimistic about? Tell us more. Tell us more. Okay, sorry, Pearl. I interrupted you. We were talking about the topics of the day.
Yes, the topics of the day. So we're going to be talking about obviously the cabinet. We're going to talk about the BET Awards, mainly Tyla and Makhadzi, tying it into how content can make an impact in your career or whatever you're doing. So yeah, let's get into it. Which one do you want us to talk about first? The cabinet or BET Awards? Which
Okay,
one?
anyone who's watching, if you're on the live, I see we got 3 people on IG. Welcome, welcome. What would you guys like to speak about first? Are we talking BET cabinets, or what was the other one?
The other one was
That was my
Julian.
one. Julian Assange and
Yes,
WikiLeaks.
that
I
was
don't know if anyone knows about Julian
and
Assange and
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks. But yeah,
I
what
have
would
no
you guys
idea
like?
who that is.
What's on your mind? I see you also got someone on YouTube. Welcome. I'm saying you're optimistic for looking at being cancelled. I'm optimistic about being
Wow.
cancelled, guys. People were trying to cancel Tyla. Well, they weren't trying to cancel her, but they were like saying that she disrespected one of the ministers.
The
Flip, I can't
ministers,
remember
yeah.
who the was. Minister of Sports and Recreation, Zizi Kodwa, I think. When she came back from winning her Grammy, and then like she was holding the Grammy and he wants to hold the Grammy, and then she like moved it away from him, and then people were like people like that, so I kind of was happy about it. I see Greatest Louis wants us to talk about cabinets. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
We're talking about cabinets. I see Ryan's popping up with some comments here as well. So Parks Tao as Minister of Trade and Industry is a great decision. He was probably the shining star as ministry in the Ministry of Cogta and otherwise dead cabinets. Okay. I've heard good things about Parks
Mm.
Tao. I'm very curious to see what he does. Trade and industry is a big one, especially for us entrepreneurs, and also those in the business space.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to have a strong minister there. I personally, I mean, I'm always gonna be biased towards digital. So I think, yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think your most important industries are. And Ryan saying that he thinks Angie Motsecha has Cyril Ramaphosa's nudes. Is that
Well, you'll never
why,
know.
why did you bring that up? Now I've got that in my mind. I'm like, what does Cupcake's nudes look like? I don't even want to think about that.
Ew.
It's probably looking like batter. Oh, why? But yes, you're right. Why is Angie Motsecha the freaking Minister of Defense?
Of defense,
What is
like
that
from
about?
basic education to
Yo,
defense. What does she know about defense?
what does she know about defense? And the thing is, Bantu Holomisa,
And
who's a
remember,
he used to be in the army. So I'm like, why was he not, guys? we
and remember
people were
that
saying
NG
we
was
have
once acting president.
acting president. When was this?
Yeah, she was once. I think
Yo,
which.
nah, guys.
Damn, I
Angie
forgot the
Motsecha.
year. She
People were
was once
saying that
acting
we have
president.
30% defense now. Our defenses
We
are
are
at 30%
30%
now.
safe.
We're 30% safe. Yeah, guys, look, I think one thing
Someone
that's
was
super
saying.
important when it comes to the ministers is really like, um, how are we going to hold them to account? Because we've done the thing with voting. We've told the ANC, we like what you guys are doing is no bueno. We don't want that. And now we brought in new people. So now, what are your expectations from these ministers? Maybe Pearl, tell me from your side, like what like ministry is important to you, maybe, and then like what is your
Nope.
expectation of that new minister? What do you want them to do?
Firstly, electricity. That
Okay,
is the most
okay.
important one because we have a minister of electricity, but there's still load shedding. And now they are implementing the 200 rands monthly, whereas people are not working. Some people are not earning that much. Already they struggle to buy electricity. Plus, they added another double digit percent to the tariff for electricity. So that issue needs to be solved because there are people out there that are actually using electricity for free. And other people now in Joburg, because they said in Joburg, that's where they will be implementing the 200 rands monthly fee. There are people in Joburg that are using electricity for free and they're not being charged. So it's like other residents from other areas are now paying for those people because they are not paying their fees, they are not buying electricity. So electricity for me is really important. And one thing that really, really is surprising is
Mm.
who
Okay.
exactly is the
So
Minister of
Pearl says
Electricity?
electricity. Greatest Louis is. I'm actually not too sure, hey? I'm actually not too sure.
And I
Maybe
think
have
the
it on
Minister of
your side.
Electricity has a deputy,
Mm,
if I'm not mistaken.
from a new party,
Now
eh?
has a deputy. I think so, yeah. Let me
Yeah.
check quickly. But
Okay.
I
Interesting.
don't get
Pearl
how we
saying
have
electricity.
that.
Yeah, load
Yeah, we
shedding in
have, yeah, there's a
2024.
deputy.
Okay.
Yo.
And who's the deputy? Because I'm assuming the minister is ANC, and then they have a deputy from another one. Politics, yes, that's what we're talking today. We're talking cabinet.
Samantha.
Guys, comment section. I really want to hear what you guys think is the most important ministry over the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years. And then I want to hear that ministry that you choose, what do you want to see that minister do and achieve? Like, what is important to you? Greatest Louis says, at least Gayton or Galen, I don't know if that's is that like a nickname, has enough tracksuits to keep the portfolio going. Yeah, new tracksuit every day in office. I can see it happening. And then Ryan saying his
Wow.
most important ministry is Department of Forest, Fisheries, and Environment. It's an interesting appointment.
Mm.
Dion has a strong economic background, so hopefully he'll look at how to create commercial and sustainable opportunities. Yes. So Ryan being in the sustainability space, I'm sure that forestry and fisheries is very important as well as environment. Ryan, I'm curious to hear from you.
Mm.
Like, do you think that is more important than electricity? Because I think electricity is a very important one. And I think it ties into environment as well, right? So we want to make sure that we have green electricity,
Mm.
but or green energy rather. But yeah, I'm curious to hear. I think for me, what's important in the short run is really just growing the economy and getting jobs to people, because I think that's where a lot of our problems come from is people don't have disposable income, and the economy is like not growing at a
Mm.
pace that it should, which is making us less competitive on an international standard, but also like we need to be able to pay these rising prices. Inflation is killing us out here. I mean, Pearl's also mentioning
Mm.
electricity in Joburg. There's now a 200 Rand base fee when you're buying electricity. So it's like, it's really tight for a lot of people. So I think growing the
Mm.
economy is like such an important one. I saw Naledi Chirwa put out a tweet today, like saying, like, you guys chose a government that is focused on bringing in foreign nationals to come and work in South Africa and making it easy for foreign nationals to come and work in South Africa, when you could have voted for like a government that's, wait, what did she say? Let me actually see if I can find this tweet, because basically what she was talking about was she was basically complaining that people didn't vote EFF. And I think the problem
Mm.
for me with EFF was mainly centered around, like, I agree with some of their policies or like their ideologies. One of the ones that I agree with is Pan Africanism. I feel like we should be aiming to unite Africa. But on the
Mm.
flip side, if you go look at our podcast episode with Talafani, there's a snippet that we put out on TikTok where we were talking about traveling to different African countries and how South Africa is basically the Santon of Africa. Like, if you go to Angola and you go to the capital of Angola and you go to their version of Santon is basically our Braamfontein, like, or our Khayelitsha. Like, it's really underdeveloped. There's, yeah, things are super expensive in Angola. Like, it's crazy. You like think things are expensive here. Things in Angola are way more expensive. Like basic things. The amounts of money that you'll
Yep.
spend to stay a night in the Empire, what's it? The Empire Hotel in Santon. I forgot the name of it. No, sorry, the Capital. There's a hotel in Santon called the Capital, 5-star hotel. Very nice experience, very nice food. The amounts of money you'll pay to spend one night in that hotel would be the same amount that you would spend to pay in like a Airbnb or like a B&B in Angola that you're sharing with other
Yep.
people. It's not a hotel, it's like someone's house that was converted into like a place for people to stay. Like, you'll pay the same price. And the reason why is because things there are just way more expensive, even things like bread and whatnot. So you pay more for things there in Angola, but the quality is so much less. And it's like you compare that to South Africa and like how nice we have things here. I think people don't realize that like South Africa is not Africa, Africa. Like there's a big difference. So a lot of people, I think that's why a lot of people want to come to South Africa from other African countries. But it was very interesting to see some of the comments that people were leaving on that video, because there was a whole debate going on there. So if you're on TikTok, go check it out. See, there's a video that we put out that went viral. talking about that topic. But bringing it back to the conversation of politics and different parties, I think the EFF has a good long-term strategy in terms of Pan-Africanism. Don't necessarily agree with socialism, but with the Pan-African side of it, I think that's really good. But I think we need to start at home. Like we need to fix our problems before
Mm.
we can start like helping others. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how government now, I think that's what's nice about the government now is they're really focusing on um, the short term and how do we boost the economy? How do we get more investment? How do we create more jobs? I think that's going to go a long way because it's going to address the things that are very difficult for South Africans right now. Let's start there. That's what's important to me. Louis says the most important should be home affairs. Okay, interesting
Mm.
take. I'd love to hear why you would say that. Ryan saying, I think the electricity minister has very limited involvement. They seem to be more of a public liaison for ESCOM. Okay, interesting. They did combine the
Mm.
ministries. I think it might change. Um, Greatest Louis says a regulated immigration policy will ease pressure on jobs, healthcare, and education. Okay, interesting. I'm curious, how would that work? Regulated immigration policy. Hmm. I'm assuming that what you're saying is that it's going to create jobs, but for who though? That's what a lot of people would be asking. And then Ryan saying trade and industry and tourism will probably create the most jobs. Dalil doesn't have the best reputation, so I was surprised to see that she got such a critical appointment. Yeah, I'm curious about the Dalil thing here. Like she's also that's also a very interesting thing because she was a part of the DA, then she left to start her own party, which is a very small party, but now she's very close with the ANC because she was one of the ministers from another party that was a minister within the ANC in our last election. So I'm very curious, very interesting take there. Interestingly, the ANC has given away some of the most problematic portfolios, hospital passed to some of the opposition with hope that they experience similar challenges. Huh.
Mm.
So there was one person that I saw comments on this. Um, Dan Corder put out a short or reel or something like that, and he's basically said that the opposition parties are taking the high risk, high reward portfolios. So what he meant by that was these portfolios are very challenging portfolios to handle, but they have some of the most biggest impact on people. So it's high risk because if they manage to do a good job, people's lives will be positively impacted, which will mean that they will gain more credibility amongst voters. But if they flop, then it will give more credibility and credence to the ANC because then the ANC is going to see, yeah, you see, this thing was not as easy as what you thought it was. I think what's going to be difficult, what I'm very curious to
Mm.
see over the next few years is how much impact they're able to bring about because some of these challenges that we're facing here are not things that you can solve in like a very short span of time. It's going to take like a decent amount of time to actually make proper impact. So I'm very curious to see what kind of impact has or happens. But I think what's important, and maybe this is where we can go with the next part of the conversation, is how are we going to hold these guys to account? Out of all of the ministries that were mentioned now, which are the most important ministries, what would you like to see from those ministries in the first 2 years? And if they do or don't achieve it, what are you going to do? Like, if they don't achieve it, what are we going to do about that? Because we want to see change. So we need to also just figure out what our role is in this greater story. So, of the ministry that you said, I mean, some of them that were mentioned, Pearl, you said electricity. Ryan, you said forestry, fisheries, and the environment. We also got another one from Louis talking about home affairs. I think for me personally, what's important to me is communications. Um, that's very, very important to me. So, yeah, I'm curious to yeah, communications and digital technologies. That's one that's important to me. So yeah, Pearl, tell me, what would you like to see happen in the energy industry or ministry over the next 2 years?
No load shedding. That's what I want
No.
to see.
Do you think that's possible?
Because if people are going to pay more, then they should use that money to alleviate load shedding. They
Mm,
should find ways to get rid of load shedding because now people are paying more for
yeah,
electricity.
that money has to go
And if
somewhere.
it doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen, we should become the next Kenya.
The next Kenya, okay.
The
Tell me
next
more about
Kenya.
that.
Because
Why
people
Kenya?
people in Kenya people in Kenya are fighting the government now.
I've seen that.
They're
Yeah.
fighting the president. So we need to let these people know that no, we don't want this. This is not possible. You can't do this to us, especially if
Mm,
it's something that really affects everybody in South Africa, especially the low class. We we need to stand up as a country. We shouldn't focus
okay.
on other things. I think as South
Hey,
Africans, we tend to focus more on other stuff. And when it comes to serious stuff like this, we don't really we're not there. Like we're not really putting that energy into it.
yeah.
We'd rather
I
do
think
challenges on TikTok.
no, I think look, a lot of people went to the ballot box this election and they made their thoughts clear to the ruling party. So I think that's the first step is like give other people a chance and see what they can do. And if it stays the same, Pearl saying she's going to be on the front lines there, Amandla Wetu, she's going to be there leading the protest. So that's how Pearl's going to keep people accountable. I've still got some comments here from Ryan. So speculation. With the GNU agreement likely including specific voting requirements, could the collaborative approach see very little serious change actually happening? That's a very good question because this
Hmm.
thing of like parties agreeing and working together, like right now, everyone's all optimistic and like happy about it and they want to see things change and there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm and everyone's getting new opportunities. But when it comes to the actual work and getting things done, can they actually work together? That's going to be an interesting thing to see
Yep.
play out because we've never seen this happen before in South Africa. So I think, like, theoretically, it's a really positive outlook. Like, things are definitely changing, which is good because whatever was going on before was not working. And I think we could all agree on that. So now things
Mm.
have an opportunity to change, but are these guys going to start bickering with each other and fighting and having these internal squabbles, or are they going to put their stuff aside and actually do stuff for the benefit of the country? And I think that's going to be a huge determining thing. Is like, are they able and capable to do that? Have they made the choice to do that? And I think that's something we're going to play out. That's going to play out over the next few months. And if they don't work together, it might get really interesting because we might see a situation where if, let's say, if the ANC now in Gauteng, right, the premier of Gauteng is now not wanting to put other parties as MECs in Gauteng. I think there's 11 positions. They want 7 out of the 11 and giving 4 away to the other parties. And the other parties are like, bruh, you've got 37% of the votes. How is it that you're getting like 60 more percent of the positions? That doesn't make any sense. And now they don't want to do that. So now it's an interesting situation because now it's like, is Cyril, the leader of the ANC, going to come in and bring out the proverbial whoop and say, look, you guys need to fall in line? Or are they going to go rogue? And are they going to go like collaborate with other parties? And if they go rogue and do their own thing, Number one, that says to us that the ANC is weak, that the leaders in the ANC aren't able to control the provincial branches of the ANC. Number two, it also probably creates a situation where now the other parties are going to push a motion of no confidence in the president. And then if Cyril Ramaphosa gets removed as president, then we go back to the beginning and we're going to have to renegotiate and figure out a new government all over again. So it's a very interesting time in the space. I see you got another comment here with regards to energy. We want to see more independent power producers empowered by governments. Private power generation is a huge opportunity. Fun fact, Kenya has
Mm,
98% renewable energy mix when it comes to 100%, and it will become 100% renewable by 2030. That's very interesting. Why are they protesting then if they have 98% energy mix? I think it was with taxes. There was like some tax thing that they were protesting.
it was with Texas, yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think, yeah. What do you think about independent power suppliers? Because a lot of people like, I agree, we need electricity. Businesses fundamentally need electricity in order to function. Like that's just a given. So if we don't have electricity, that's a huge problem. But now a lot of people will say they don't want independent power suppliers because it's going to create more inequality, and that kind of responsibility should fall under governments. They don't want the private sector to take on that responsibility. What are your thoughts on that, bro? Versus approach, like do we go the capitalist approach or the socialist approach? Because socialist says government must be the one that handles the electricity. Capitalism says rather let people make the choice themselves and choose whatever business they want to choose. And government can have a power supply business, but then they must be competitive and offer a good service so that people can choose them. Versus socialism saying, nah, no competition, government provides electricity and you take what you can get. What are your thoughts on that? What would you choose?
I would rather choose, honestly. Freedom. I need to exercise my freedom of choice, right? I need to be able to have options. That's how I feel.
Okay, what if, okay, let me put it this way. What if you could have options, but they would be more expensive
Hmm.
than if you didn't have options?
You okay? Now that's a different case now. Ish. That's ish. Yeah, you're putting me in a tight spot now.
I mean, it could work either way. You
How
could have
expensive?
options that are cheaper. Well, I think what might happen is like if you go the private route, something that we see a lot in South Africa is like you have two different South Africas, right? You have the well-off, rich South Africa, and then you have the poor South Africa that doesn't have access. So if you're going to go the private route, you have to make sure that you have really good companies that do charge a little bit more, but they deliver, and the people in those areas can afford it and it works well. Then you go to the poorer places, and the poorer places, obviously, those companies don't go to the poorer places because it's more difficult to go there. It costs more money, and the electricity might be the same price, or maybe a little bit cheaper, or maybe even more expensive, but the quality isn't as great because all the good companies are only focusing on the good areas. Like that's the kind of implication that we could potentially see happen. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think we should have choices, but I think we should have good options. The problem that we've had in the past is that government hasn't been incentivized to perform. So, what's really nice about what's happening now in the political space is we've sent a message to the government and we've said to them, like, guys, if you don't perform, you lose our votes. And when you lose our votes, things become more difficult for you. So I think that message is a good message. I think it's an important message. And I think based off of that, we're going to see things slightly change. But it's really predicated on these political parties working together. So I'm very curious to see what happens in the next 2 to 5 years. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where we go with it. But yeah, shall we also talk any last thoughts? Any last thoughts on the political space? We don't normally talk about politics here like this, but today we decided it's something that's happening and it's important and affects all of us. We wanted to talk a little bit about the new cabinet. So yeah, any other thoughts with regards to that? Anyone who's on the live that would like to share? I think we've Photo, are you still there? I think we've got someone from a different country. If I remember correctly, you're from a different country. I'd love to hear your thoughts and like how politics function there and how what your perspective is on what's happening here. Drop us a comment if you. What do you think about what's happening here? Because we've just had an election. Our ruling party has now lost the majority, and now they're having to go into coalitions, and they formed what they're calling a GNU, which is a government of national unity, which is basically all the parties working together. That's the idea, but whether that happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. I'm pretty sure load shedding is a very foreign concept for people up in Alaska. But yeah, I see Pearls dropped off. So yeah, we'll wait to see if there's any other comments. Um, but yeah, what we can do in the meantime is I'd love for us to talk a little bit about the BET Awards. I'm hoping Pearl will be back because I think she knows a little bit more. Thoughts on the death penalty potentially coming back? Yeah, yeah, death penalty. That's a tough one, hey? I think with death penalty, you have to have a really solid system in place to enforce it. Because if you make a mistake, guys, death is one of those things that's irreversible. Like, yes, you can get a tattoo. People say it's permanent, but you can get it removed, right? If someone is gone, they're gone. You can't fix that mistake. So there has to be a system in place that can definitely make 110% sure that this person is guilty. And right now, I think because there's such a backlog in the judicial and justice system, there's like so many cases, so many things that need to be processed through that system. And that creates a lot of pressure on the system. And I think being able to make those kind of determinations to see if someone is really guilty is going to be quite difficult right now, especially. So I think death penalty could be an option, but first we need to get the basics right. Like, are we able to prosecute people and put them in prison for basic, simple things and prove that they're actually guilty? If we can get to that point, then we can start talking about death sentence, because death sentence, once you there's no coming back from that. um, it's always difficult because of false accusations. Bros couldn't keep Zuma in jail, but they decide who dies. That's the thing, right? Like, we need to be able to get the justice system proper before we can focus on death sentences. Like, that's wild. I also think, I don't know if this is just me being like an empath, but I also truly believe that a lot of the crimes that we experience in South Africa are centered around our culture. And our culture right now is at a place where there is a lot of, um, what's the word? Um, Scarcity. We don't have a culture of abundance. We have a culture of scarcity. And it's because a lot of people they come from places where they don't have a lot. So that tends to create a lot of animosity amongst ourselves, because we see ourselves in a situation where extremely rich people are living right next to people that are extremely poor, and that creates this kind of rift between the two, and creates a situation where the poor now wants to equalize the system, because you need to have balance. Balance is where you find peace. So in order for that balance to happen, because the government hasn't created an environment for us to all be on the same playing field, we start to see these outbursts of crime and, looting and that kind of stuff. And I think that if we solve a lot of the basic issues when it comes to electricity, when it comes to access of education, when it comes to food, just being able to eat like healthy food, I think if we're able to provide that for the majority of people, I think naturally one of the side effects of that will be less crime, because I don't think people want to pursue a career of crime. I don't think crime is. There are obviously there's the exception, right? You have your Ted Bundys of the world who just like crime and like violence and stuff like that. But the options. And I think if we can give those options to people, I think we will see less crime. And I think that's something that I'm looking forward to and hoping to see over the next few years as well. I think it benefiting the citizens of South Africa, but I would tread with caution, as to me it sounds like politicians are trying to hold their power after people voiced their opinions. Yeah, I think the national government, from what I've seen, it seems like the national government is relinquishing a lot of the power. They got a freaking good deal, guys. The ANC got a freaking good deal with the amounts of ministers they have compared to the amounts of votes that they got. Like, they got a really good deal. And I think the reason why they got such a good deal was because the DAs are realizing that they can make. Because, like I said, if they can make that difference, if they can improve home affairs, communications, um, all the, agriculture, these different industries that they got, if they can make actual change happen that people in South Africa can see and feel on a daily basis, that's going to really help them in the next election, because people are going to be like, I think majority of people don't care much about what color the person is that's leading, um, what background they come from. I think the most important thing to people right now is just basic things, basic education, food, electricity, water, sanitation. Like, these are things that people really care about, that affects them every day. And if we can fix those things, then we can start worrying about the other things. But if you don't have food on your plate, if you're unable to bath or wash yourself because you have no water, guys, water was out the other day, richest square mile in Africa, and I woke up to no water. And I'm literally like, the fact that I need to wake up this morning and decide if I'm going to take a dump or not, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to flush the toilet later. I'm like, why am I even thinking about this? This shouldn't be something I have to even think about. But now I have to make this decision. Do I poo or do I not poo? Like, sorry to bring up dirty jokes, but like, that's literally what was going through my mind. I was like, why? How is it possible that you can live in the richest square mile in Africa and now you're having to make these choices? Like, surely that's a problem. Ryan, should education not be the real priority? Equal access to quality education is so pivotal in creating new opportunities and changing to an abundance culture. I 100% agree with you. I think the challenge with education is that it's a long term play. The impact of education is not something that you're going to see today. If you fix, let's say, our new basic education minister, Saviwe, I'm not too sure what her surname is, but let's say she goes in now and she completely revamps the syllabus, and she creates an environment where grade ones of next year and the year after, they have like the perfect schooling career. I mean, it's not likely that it's going to be perfect, but let's say that happens, optimal scenario. The implications of those grade ones, being super educated and being capable will only be felt at least 18 years after the implementation of that policy. Not even counting the 3, 5, 10 years that those students are going to go post basic education into tertiary education. Those impacts are only going to be felt later down the line. So I think right now, education is super important for the young generation because the low-hanging fruits taken advantage of, because if they can impact people on those low fruit levels, that's something that people are going to, it's going to build trust with the electorate, and with that trust they're going to be able to do more. So that's my thoughts on education. I see we got Palesa left, she went to Germany. I'm curious to hear what you think about what's happening here in South Africa, in South A. um Yeah, what are we saying? So we've got Fodor as well, who is joining us from Alaska, saying it would be interesting to put the merged political party through some tests to see how they would respond to various crisis simulations to get a feel of how they would respond. Actions speak louder than words. That's such an interesting topic. Like, what if before parties go into elections, they had to go through some sort of like simulation or play some game that's sort of like, I'm thinking like Monopoly. It sounds stupid, but it's like if you look at war, for example, like if you look at what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, those generals literally play games to figure out what their strategy is going to be and to like kind of hypothesize what would happen if they made certain decisions. They literally will sit there and play war games to figure out what to do in real life. I think that kind of approach could be quite beneficial to politics as well. But I think the average person like doesn't care about politics that much, to be honest. I think the average person, they just want to be able to worry about their jobs, their family. They want the basic things. Um, Ryan saying, bro, every day is crisis mode simulation here. That is true though. Like we literally deal with the craziest things here in South Africa. I think just crime, dude. Literally just crime happening. That's crisis mode every day that you have to deal with. So I think majority of people. What's up, Chad? How you doing? We're talking cabinets. Curious to hear what your thoughts are. But yeah, I think in general, that's the kind of reality that we live with in South Africa. It's an all-day crisis simulation. What do you think about the future of our BRICS relationship? Some of the opposition parties have been vocal about leaving BRICS as we contribute more than we benefit. Yo, BRICS, BRICS is a very interesting topic. I think with BRICS, there's actually this documentary by Ray Dalio. I'm not too sure if anyone here knows Ray Dalio, but he is an economist, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's an economist. Um, but he actually put out a documentary not too long ago. I'm just trying to find it here. Yes. 2 years ago, he put out a documentary called Changing World Order. And anyone who's interested in like macroeconomics and power dynamics and BRICS, our relationship with America, anyone who's interested in those topics must go and watch this Changing World Order documentary, because what he talks about is the economics behind different world global superpowers. So in the past, before America, like right now, America is the dominant power in the world. Before that, it was Britain. And before Britain, it was the Dutch. And there's a very similar cycle that happens where these countries, they start small and then they grow, and they grow to the point where they dominate the global economic space, to the point where their currency is the master currency. So that's currently where the US is. If you're going to trade a lot of things, you're going to have to buy dollars in order to move things. And the US is now the dominant currency. It gives them a lot of power in the economic outlook of the world. Now, what happens with these countries is over time, they go through a process where they become mediocre because they have so much power, because they have so much control. That creates a situation where they become mediocre and then they become weak within their political spectrum. And what happens is they become very divided. And this didn't just happen. It's not we see it happening with America now, but this happened with the UK, and it happened with the Netherlands as well. And what happens is the political landscape in those countries becomes destabilized, which makes them even weaker, which creates an opportunity for the next rising power to now take that place that they are leaving vacant because they're busy squabbling amongst themselves. Um,
Mm.
it's a very, very, very interesting documentary to watch because it goes and it shows you the patterns that happened from the Netherlands, that happened from the UK, and now you're starting to see it with America as well, where they are completely divided. When you compare that to a Russia or a China, those countries are very united. So it's very interesting to see how, those patterns and how it's playing out in the world today. And I think based off of the logic that he presents and puts forward in this documentary, it actually makes sense to me to really go towards the brick side of things, because the US is likely going to continue having these problems when it comes to the political landscape that they're trying to navigate. So, in that sense, it makes more sense to go with BRICS. But coming back to the US, I mean, one thing that South Africa has done over the last few years is they've treaded the line. They've kind of stuck in the middle. I say we've treaded the line and we've stuck in the middle. So we don't take a side. We're not fully like we are part of BRICS, but we also have a relationship with the US, and we kind of like hovered in the middle, being trying to be friends with everyone. And I think the current GNU, I think it's going to continue doing that because you have the one side of the GNU, which is mainly the ANC side, which is pro BRICS, pro Russia, pro China. And they're going to continue forging those relationships and maintaining those relationships. And then you also have the more progressive, I won't say progressive, but more conservative so I think GNU, it kind of puts us in a position where we can still kind of tread that line because we have two different sides of government that have two different opinions, so we can kind of relate to both sides, which I think is probably what's going to happen. But I think the short-term play is to focus on maintaining the relationship with the West. But I do think the long-term play is maintaining a relationship with BRICS, which sounds very counterproductive because I was saying earlier that like, I'm personally, I pertain more to capitalist ideology, but the world order is changing, man. Like, you guys need to watch that documentary. It's very, very interesting to watch. Um, hey, Pearl, you back? I see we've also got a comment here from Fodor. Yep, you can run through all sorts of scenarios: droughts, tropical storm, knocking out major infrastructure, bridge collapse, assassinations, earthquakes, sinkholes. It can provide some very valuable insights. I go through these same types of simulations in my work. Oh, interesting, interesting. What work do you do? Please do remind me. Um, but yeah, guys, that's what I think. Ryan, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Like, and if you haven't watched that documentary, like, please watch it. It's actually like these topics, they sound super boring and nerdy and like very technical, but the way that he created that documentary is very easy to watch and consume and understand. He explains it in a very simple way, and it's also entertaining. Maybe I'm just a nerd. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a nerd and I find stuff like that entertaining, but I definitely recommend checking it out because I think that's going to have a huge impact on us in the next like 10, 20 years. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, Ryan. Like, are you pro BRICS? Are you more pro West? What are your thoughts on that? But anyways, Pearl, we spent like an hour on this thing. I see I've lost your attention as well. You're like, nah, this is too much economic talk. I'm not interested.
Not
Uh,
really. It's not really. It's yeah. Minister of Communications needs to do something because
oh yeah,
I
with the
can't.
Wi-Fi. Yeah, no,
I
it's a problem.
can't.
So I think before we move on to BET, we've got one more comment here from Ryan and from Fodor. So
Mhm.
Ryan saying, I think we lean into the African free trade agreements as a preference. We could grow into a superpower over the next 20 years. Yeah, so African free trade agreement, that's what the states. And we basically get a lot of benefits from trading with the US. Um, and from those benefits, it feeds into our economy and helps grow us. Superpower over the next 20 years, that would be amazing. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I feel like that would be amazing. If we could achieve that, whew, I feel like we could achieve it, but we need to like, everyone needs to get on board with that if we're going to achieve that. And people need to be willing to make
Mm.
sacrifices. Fodor says he works in telecommunications, which is considered critical infrastructure in Alaska to keep small communities connected. Our healthcare and government operations depend on us continuing to function when shit hits the fan. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Communications is so important, especially in a digital world. Like, so many of our systems are actually all communicating with each other. So like even us being on this live stream, there's a whole bunch of back-end systems that need to be able to talk to each other in order for us to be able to do this right now. And if we don't have access to internet, if we don't have proper telecommunication systems in place, we lose out on that opportunity, and things become way more difficult for us to do like simple things that we take for granted. Being able to order Uber Eats, like,
Mhm.
to us that might seem like a simple basic thing to order an Uber, but guys, like I said earlier, go to Angola. There's no such thing as Uber there. You have to go and find a cab driver. You have to negotiate a price with them. You have to trust them. Like, there's no such thing as Uber in those countries. And yeah, I think we've regressed a lot in terms of that space. But
Yup.
anyways, we've spoken economics, we've spoken politics, we've spoken all of these things, which are super important, but also really boring. What are we talking about in terms of entertainment? Entertain us, bro. That's why we're here today.
Entertainment. Alrighty, so on Sunday, the BET Awards were hosted in LA, and two of our South African artists took home some awards. Tyla took two, which is Best International Act and Best Newcomer, and then Makhadzi took Viewer's Choice, Best International Act. With regards to Tyler, there's been some mixed reactions when it comes to her awards. Best newcomer and best international act, especially in the states, because some people are saying no, she didn't deserve that award. Someone else deserved that award, which I don't want to mention. I don't want to mention that person.
Yeah,
like
spicy.
like they were saying like she just came out of the blue, and she's not part of the culture because she doesn't identify as black.
Interesting.
Those are the comments that I saw. They say, why
Yeah.
is she part of the BT Awards? Because she is not part of the culture. She doesn't identify as black.
I
So
assume
why is she
this is
doing
people
it?
responding to her saying that she's like colored and like, the whole
Yeah,
colored thing.
yeah, that is because of that. Because they were saying, just because she's there, then she has to identify as black because someone of her race being, how when you're mixed race in the states, they say you're black. If you have a
Mm.
black mother or black father, it'd say, no, you're black. But she said, no, I'm a South African. And as a South African, I'm colored. And wherever I go, I'll identify as a colored. But since you guys, I'm in your country, then fine. I'm a proud black woman. That I won't deny. But still, even after she put out a statement saying that, saying no, she respects other countries and she's going to identify as a proud black woman, still there are those people that say no, she didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve that award. She didn't deserve to be a part of the award in general. Like the nominations, the performance, because she did perform. They were saying that she came out of nowhere. She's an industry plant, all those type of situations or all those type of comments. But either way, she took it. She took those two awards gracefully. Yeah,
Okay,
like
gracefully. Okay, before we unpack
gracefully.
this, I first need to quickly shout out the 2, 3 viewers that we have on YouTube. I assume you guys are new to the channel, so welcome. It's really dope having you here.
Welcome.
By the way, we made it to 400 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're a part of
Yay!
fam, it's good to have you here. You came right on time because Pearl's coming through the topics today. So look, Pearl, I'm a white guy.
It's so juicy.
I'm a basic white guy. So I want to hear from you. Like, what do
Basic.
you think about this?
Well, I feel that Americans mostly, let me not say most Americans, let me not generalize. Most Americans think the world revolves around America, and they're not open to seeing what's happening outside of America, because even their view of other countries, especially, or let me say other continents, especially Africa, they think we live in huts, we have lions as pets. They still have that mindset. So if someone identifies as something that they are not used to, or something that they when to them it's different, they react to how they know things. They are not open to learning why that person says they're colored. Everything about culture. They say no. This is not how we do things here. That's not how it works. You need to learn how other people do things, and then if they want us to know what they do and accept how they do things, they should accept us as well. So they should leave Tyla alone. She's a
Yeah.
talented young woman, and she deserves all the recognition that she's getting. That's what I believe. That's how I feel.
Hmm. Yeah, we've got a
Because
comment
she's
from
come a
Ryan.
long way.
She has, and she's waved our flag high overseas. And this is what I was saying. Like being
Exactly.
cancelled can be a good thing, guys. Like if you in the center of controversy, like it can be a good thing because it's good. It's also very good to have these conversations Minneapolis or wherever. Like we could literally have one of those people hop onto this live and share their points of view now. That's a new thing. Like if we rewind to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was never possible. Like it might have been
Mm.
possible, but be very unlikely for the average person. But now because of TikTok, we have internet, we can put these things out there to see how the outcome of these conversations results in us deciding on how we view culture and creating sort of like a global connected culture. I think that's what's going to happen.
Mm.
Like cultures are going to start becoming more connected and accepted globally. So, for example, in this situation, we have two different situations. The one side is in South Africa, it's okay to use the word colored and it's okay to identify as colored as a race. And people generally are okay with that. And even people that pertain to that racial class, from what I've seen, generally are proud of that and preach that message. Whereas in the States, it's different. You cannot say that word. It's racist and it's very provocative and they don't have that understanding of the context of what that culture means. So for them, that's like a completely foreign thought. So now you have these two conflicting ideas that are now being debated in the public domain. And now it's the thing of like, well, what do we do with this? And I think what you said is like, I kind of agree with what you said in terms of like how we should be open and accepting that there are other ways of thinking besides our own, and those ways of thinking might work for different people. And if it does, how does it harm me as a person? Like if someone across the world
Exactly.
wants to call themselves colored and has a culture centered around that word, even though in my culture it might be racist, what how does that impact me? Like,
And you know what's crazy? They say that, um, jeez, you know what's crazy? I hope I'm back.
you're back.
Okay. The craziest thing is they say colored is a racist word, but they use the N word, which is a derogatory and racist word. They use it for themselves. So if South Africans feel that colored, despite it being racist, like they say, then they use it, it's the same thing as how they do with the N word in this context. I think that's how we can put it now. So they should, as much as
Yeah,
we accept them calling themselves the N word, they should allow colored people to call themselves colored. Simple.
I that's such a good point. It is kind of ironic. Ryan also says, yeah, how do Americans allow people to identify as different genders but not as their own race?
Jeez.
Dude, that's what I love about Ryan, dude. Ryan, like Ryan's not afraid of controversy, and I love it so much. Like, we need people that are able to say what's
But
on
that
their
is
mind.
true.
What lands up happening is you think certain things that you need in order to grow and to like actually determine, like decide what is right and what is wrong. We can only make those decisions when we have these conversations, but
Mhm.
if you're not saying what you think, you're wasting our time and you're wasting your time and you're not letting your opinion be heard. So it's like, say what you think. If it's wrong,
Mm.
then people will come and correct you and you can grow from that, and we should be accepting of that. Like,
Yeah.
and also we should be understanding of the fact that context changes over time. Something that's acceptable today might not be acceptable tomorrow, and something that's acceptable tomorrow might not be acceptable today. So it's like we need to consider these nuances. But I think as people, we try to box things in. And I think that these conversations and us talking about these things helps open our minds and go outside of that little box of comfort and try and understand something beyond reality and become aware that there's so many other realities out there from our own experiences that we need to consider and be a part of and navigate. Taffraff. Americans are so wild. They'll be the first people to say that blackness isn't a monolith, and in the same breath, they want the wild world to subscribe to their definitions of blackness. Yo,
Mm.
I don't want to speak on blackness because I'm white. So, what are your thoughts on that, bro?
That is so true. I totally agree with that. Because like I said, they want us to accept how they do things. But when we come to them, they don't want us to do things how we do them from where we come from. They'll say that no. And one thing that they like to compare a lot is slavery and apartheid. They like to compare those two a lot. They say, no, in South Africa, Black people were not really enslaved the way Black people in America were enslaved, which is not really the case. It was the same thing. If you look at it,
Yo,
it was the same.
I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I'm like, people love to participate in the poverty Olympics. Like,
Mm,
why are we competing as to who's more oppressed? Surely that's not a constructive
exactly.
conversation to be having. Like, surely we should be thinking beyond that now. Like, what is the next step? Like,
Mm,
what do we all want and how do we get there? Like, let's talk about that.
exactly. Exactly.
people want to be happy. And a large portion of being happy means that the environment that you function in is happy. So, like in the context of the South African situation, I think that as South Africans, we have a deeply entrenched trauma from seeing poverty around us all the time. We have a deeply
Mm,
entrenched trauma of the crime that happens in our communities. We have a deeply entrenched trauma of did I lock my car? Did I lock my car? Did I lock my car? Meanwhile, overseas, car theft is like not as big as, not even close to what it is here in South Africa. But now, because you have this trauma, you have this worry that's sitting on your shoulders the whole time, and we don't realize it because we live in it every day. But we have this like
mm,
shared trauma that we experience on a daily basis. The only way that we get rid of that trauma is by uplifting everyone, and everyone getting to the point where people don't have to steal cars in order to live a decent life. People don't have to do these violent things. They aren't expected to do these violent things. Is probably, and you don't have to go into this if you don't want to, but you did mention to me the other day of like how
okay.
you and your family were kind of in this environment that was like you could feel like the energy was just not great. Like, would you be willing to like share some of that?
Mm,
I know it's quite a personal thing. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but I think it's very prevalent to this topic.
yeah, like the that whole area as a whole. Like if you go outside of that area, you feel that, energy. Like everything is just so clear, and like you feel so free. But immediately you go in, there's this darkness that is surrounded by that area, and the people as well. They played a role because there were so many people that had negative energy, like they have rather negative energy towards other people, especially people that want to make a difference in their lives, people that are looking forward to having a brighter future. If they see a person like that, then they start to act different to that type of person. Like it's either they create rumors, they spread false rumors, or what they do is they create an argument just so that person can stoop so low to their level and be satisfied because they feel intimidated by that type of person because that person doesn't think the way they think. So it was like that. And also the electricity issue was, I think 3 years without electricity, without a transformer. Imagine.
Sure.
That's how bad it was. But when you're someone who believes that you're going to come out of that situation and everything is going to be okay, then you pray every day. You say, Lord, I'm going to make it, and I hope I didn't cut off
You're still here.
because
Could you just give us some context behind the
I hope so.
situation that you were experiencing? Because you mentioned like an area, but I think that like obviously in our conversation you explained that to me, but I think the average person watching might not have the full context.
It might not the full context. It was a depressing area. I'm not gonna lie because you're not looking forward to waking up in the morning because you have to face that environment. You have to like look forward to what you're gonna do that day, but at the same time, you're not looking forward to it because you're thinking of how some things might not play out, and that negative energy, it kind of like puts you down as well because you're not feeling motivated. So that's why I always say you become what you're surrounded by. But at some point, if you tell yourself that I'm not going to stoop this lower or I'm not going to be drowned by this energy, then you're able to come out. And that's where now those people that are negative start to feel intimidated, they start to feel some type of way, and then they try to put you back down there.
Mm.
So
I would
yeah, that's
love to
something I
see
can do
like
for now.
a story about that, even if it's like your story, where it's like someone who,
Mm,
I think that would be so impactful for so many people. If you created some sort of series or movie that was centered around being in an environment where things are just not set up for your success at all. There's no electricity.
mm,
People around you are all depressed. There's a lot of, alcohol and drug consumption, and all of these
yeah.
like negative situations are happening around you. And I'm honestly just describing like some of the tough areas that we have in South Africa and the reality that so many people face in those areas. If you could create some sort of story about overcoming that, because there are a lot of people that
Mm,
have overcome that. There's so many stories out there, people that have come from Ilokshini that have been able to find themselves in constructive places and been able to achieve these amazing things. And I think it's so important for people that are in that space to be able to see those stories and see that it's possible for you to be able to come out of that space. And like, it can't be someone like
mm,
me because I come from a privileged background. So that's what I think is that's one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast, because I can talk with someone
mm,
like Tyla and manage to be able to create these businesses and launch these apps and do these amazing things, and like also getting into how he did it, right? Like even if it was just a documentary or some sort of life story of these people that have managed to do that, I think we need people to invest in that, because if someone
mm,
invests in creating a movie like that and to the point where it's done really well, where you get some of Africa's most talented actors and if you just fund that talent and get them to tell these stories, I think that you will see a return in investments in the form of people actually starting businesses, being able to being motivated to go and get an education, being inspired to go and get a job, and benefit from that investment. And I'm hoping that someone like Gayton McKenzie, and I'm calling you out, Gayton, if you ever watch this, invest in something like that, because that can have real life impact on people. If you can share these stories, if you can give those people that have the talents the opportunity to share their own story, that's going to inspire someone in that position, and it's going to shift our culture from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And if we can
mm,
shift our minds as a nation, that mindset shift will result in an action shift. And you'll see people be more motivated, be more active, be more participatory in our economy, in growing, in developing our country. And I think that's super important. So, Gayton, if you're watching this, let's chat.
I wouldn't mind sharing my story.
Yeah. Tafraf says, yeah,
I,
love
I,
that idea. Pearl, you must get on it.
I would definitely, because I seriously need to work on that book. Okay. I seriously need
Yeah.
to work on my
We
book
spoke about that
and
book.
tell my story. Yes. I need to tell people how a bat would come into my room every night while it was dark. There was no electricity. And a bat would traumatize me every single day, coming into my room every day. That's what.
You know what, bro? Kind of poetic, don't you think? That when you were living in that environment, that harsh environment where that energy was drawing you down, that you would have things
Mm,
like bats coming into, like those things are omens. I don't know if you've ever
yeah.
read The Alchemist, but they talk about these things called omens, where you see a certain animal or something happens, you see a shooting star. All of those things are
Mm,
omens, and they kind of indicate
yeah.
they're a symbol of what's happening and what the reality is of your situation and what you can expect to come. And you hear a lot of that in stories. And I feel like that bat was an omen. It was a symbol
Eish,
of
a
where
bad
you were
one.
at. Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Where you were at, and how, and I'm sure there were other omens that came across that helped you get out of those situations.
yeah,
So
for
there's
sure.
so many stories out there, and I think there's so much opportunity that comes with those stories to uplift the continent. So all we need is people who believe in that, and that's what I love about these conversations, because us just talking about this now, we're planting a seed. Just this
Mm,
conversation, we're planting a seed. Because whether it's your story or someone else's story, or whether you're the producer or there's a director out there, there's people that will listen to this, that hear what we're saying, that are invested in the same idea, and that will take action to make that come into reality. And talking about it is just the beginning. Once we talk about it a few times, maybe someone joins the community group and we start a conversation in there. Maybe there's someone else out there who has an idea that maybe has access to funding, whatever. We can network and connect with one another to make these kind of things happen. And that's the purpose of these live streams and these kind of discussions, is to talk about the reality that we're in, relates with one another, and then come up with ideas and formulate pathways to make sure that we can shift and change our reality. If we have a shared vision that we want to achieve, let's talk about that vision. Let's try and make it come into reality. And the reason why this JD Creations exists is literally an example of that. The fact that you're in the position that you are today, you're no longer in that space in which you were, is a testament to that being reality. And anyone who's watching this,
mm,
I'm sure there's been multiple other stories where you've kind of seen this happen, and it can happen here as well. But it's really up to us to take those steps and transfer these things into action. And I think one thing that you can do now, which is like a very small thing to do, is to follow us on these platforms, be a part of these conversations on a regular basis, share them with other people who are interested in these kind of things that you have these kind of conversations with. Share it with them, because there might be connections that can happen within this community that can change and shift the future of what we want to see. Join the WhatsApp group. That's another way to connect with people in the community as well. Let's find ways to engage in that group. Pearl and I, we've been running that group. We're not 100% sure what's the best way to engage with people on the group. So we're open to you guys being a part of that journey. Give us suggestions. If you want to be a part of the back end team, let us know. We've got internship opportunities we can offer you. Um, so yeah, like it's really exciting. I love talking about these things, and I think they're very important conversations. And I appreciate everyone who has listened to this so far. And anyone else who's come through, we appreciate you. Tafraf, I know you've also been on lives before. It's good to have you back. Um, so yeah, I think, any last words before you wrap up, bro?
we're not talking about Julian today.
Nah, we don't need to talk about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange.
WikiLeaks.
Can always talk about that another time. I think that conversation isn't specific to South Africa, and I think that's what I've loved about this conversation. It's specific to our continent, specific to our culture, and what
Mm,
we're dealing with now. I think that's more important, in my opinion.
mm, for sure. Any last words from me? Last words from me? Please, no more load shedding. We got a
Yeah.
power cut this morning. We don't get load shedding this side, but we did have a random power cut and we don't know why. So
Yeah.
please,
If
Minister
these
of Electricity
ministers
and the Deputy, please work on that. And
if these ministers
also,
don't do their job, Pearl will be there in the front lines marching to Parliament.
I wouldn't mind doing that. I'll become an activist. I'll I'll shift from being a hip hop activist to being an electric activist. I don't know, electricity activist.
Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
I would.
You were saying something else. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, last words. Damn, I forgot.
Cool. I
Yo,
see we got a
I'm
comment
getting
here from
old.
Tat. What's the documentary you were talking about called? I don't know. Cast. So, hey, whoever's willing to be a part of it, let's chat. We can figure out a name. We can figure out a name as we go along. Let's build the plane while flying it.
Build a plane while flying it.
Yeah. I think on my side, parting words, I would say we all have the power to shape the future. It first starts with an
Mm,
idea that then turns into action. And when you can share those ideas and when you can share those actions with other people around you, you create impact. And we need to create that culture of sharing. And that's what we're doing here today. So if that's something that is important to you, join us, be a part of that action, be a part of that discussion, be a part of that sharing, and let's see what we can do to change the world. Those are my parting
nice,
words.
nice. My other parting words. Cancel that 200, please. Cancel.
Yeah, no, that's ish.
Yeah, but I think also, um, yeah, I had some motivational words that I wanted to share, but they for some reason they are, I don't know. But anyway, if you want to hear some motivational journey, you can watch the C.Cast 23, the Jordan season. Not the Jordan season, no, the Jordan episode. You can just watch the Jordan episode of the C.Cast, and then you'll get to hear my story. That's where I kind of, get deeper into my journey, how it all started, and, till here as part of J Creations. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, check that out. Check that out if you want to hear more about Pearl's story. But yeah, Pearl, it is almost 7:30. I think we can wrap it up there. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. This was the C.Chats episode number 5, I think it was. And
Number
yeah,
5,
this
yeah.
is where we talk about changing the future. And we appreciate everyone who's been a part of it. Tafraf says, love these lives. Have a great week. We love you too, Taf.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for coming here.
you.
Thank you for that message, guys. Yo, messages like that really actually give us the energy and the drive to continue doing this. So please do like,
Yeah.
share, subscribe, like share it. Like the numbers that we get show us that we're doing something right, and it just puts fuel in our tank and it helps us reach more people, which increases our impact. So if this
Mm.
resonated with you, please do that. And yeah, shout out to everyone who's done that already, and we appreciate you endlessly. And yeah, until then, we'll see you on the next one. Good night.
Bye.